And the idea is that I call this dot spirit, we can call it whatever we like. Some people call it Jimmy the One, some people call it God, doesn't matter, we're just fighting about the name of it. And it's naught dimensional, this little dot. And what we imagine is that this dot moves, and it draws a circle around itself to remember where it is, around its own centre, and then it moves, and it draws another circle around itself. And what you will have is one of these. A vesica piscis, which is two circles, each based on each other's circumference. Can you see that? Can everybody see that? It's vesica piscis means the bladder of the fish, but it's also known as the cosmic yoni. The yoni being, of course, the name for the female reproductive organs. And it is the space out of which all geometry comes. Now, that's really the case when you start drawing geometry. It's another missing slide, so you're going to have to come and see it again. But if you know how to do a vesica piscis and work with the circles around it, you can then draw triangles, squares, pentagons, hexagons, octagons and decagons, and they will be perfect. But they all spring from this first bit. You have to do this first.
What's the relation of the sizes of the circles?
The relation is that they're each centred on each other's circumference. So this circle is centred there, and this circle is centred there, and they create this cosmic vulva, this shape of creation. The other thing about that, of course, is that it's the same shape as our eyes, same shape as our noses, same shape of plenty of other bits that are in the human organ that we don't need to go towards either. On a more cosmic level, we're going to talk a bit more about this. On a more cosmic level, I found this. This is a picture of an hourglass nebula, which is 8,000 light years away from Earth, and was described as framed by an unknown process, which I love. It looks like the Eye of Sauron, quite apart from anything else. That's really good. But you can see it's like something here and something here went bang, and as all this dust and matter and whatever else it was that was here meets each other, something happens. Creation right there, bang in the middle of your vesica piscis. I was astonished by this. I really love it. And actually, out in galaxies, you find loads and loads of really spooky geometry that's kind of quite symmetrical.
Well, when a fertilised ovum separates, it uses that as well.
That's right, yeah. We're going to look right at the end. We're actually going to look at what happens when you start cutting things in two and how bizarre it gets.
Tube as well, can't you?
Yeah.
Passageway.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. It's the ultimate of geometry. From there, you can go everywhere. And when you see it in 3D, it's a really different thing. But all of these two-dimensional representations tend to bring to mind 3D ideas, like the splitting of the sphere, the egg. You're exactly right. And that's one of the reasons.
Sorry, so you're saying every single straight line geometric shape, like all these ones you have
Yeah.
there, can be made from starting from a spherical?
Yeah. Well, they're all ways of dividing spheres into equal portions. Thanks for reminding me. All of the shapes we're going to look at today are ways of dividing spheres into equal portions. So we've now got the first dimension. Effectively, we've got to imagine that there's a line across here, okay, because I haven't got the slide. So there's a line where spirit moved and it remembered where it was, and it's going, well, looky here. And we've still got oneness. It's still only one thing, but it's pretending to be two, and it's taking itself seriously, okay? And that's what's been going on ever since. There's a period of constant replication and reflection on yourself, and we're still doing it, projecting ourselves just to the slide and looking at it and going, wow, I'm not sure I like that. So that's spirit, first dimension. We've got length. Okay, everybody happy with that? Now, the quickest way of spirit getting home from the end of this line, short of going back on itself, which nobody likes to do, is to go up to the top of the geometric shape and back down again, and it makes a triangle. Triangles obviously are made up of 3 parts, and that's a really important idea to the ancients. It's come through to us in the idea of the Trinity, which is a shortened form of triunity. It means 3 in 1, and it means that is because there always is 3 in 1. There is the knower, the knowing, and that which is known. So there's you, there's your understanding of the tree, and there's the tree itself, which are always involved in conscious interpretation of the outside world. And that goes all the way up to really complicated things, like there's the infinite complexity that is you, looking at the infinite complexity that is, say, your mother, and then there is your understanding of that. Now, this is a really complicated philosophical idea, but you can see that those 3 things must be present in all conscious interaction with the world. The other thing is that as soon as spirit moved from one place to another, that's like the equivalent of the birthing process, which we can see quite physically. And effectively what's happening is spirit is moving from unity into the material matrix, into the place where we live. What's happening there is opposites arise, polarity on either end of this line, relationship. Effectively, we have eaten of the knowledge, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil as soon as spirit does that, because that's what generates opposites. The triangle, Lao Tzu said of it, he said 1 begat 2, 2 begat 3, and 3 begat the 10,000 things, which is exactly the way it went. Everything is made up of triangles. We're going to look at it in a different way, but spirit had 3 ways of dealing with the triangle. We've talked about the plane triangle. So effectively, we're saying that a plane is a line of lines, okay, making a triangle. And a form, a 3-dimensional form, is a line of planes. So spirit can make 3 different shapes with triangles. I'm not going to bother with those pictures actually. We'll just go straight for the shapes. The most simple shape that spirit can make with triangles is this one. It's called a tetrahedron. And as I move it around, you can see that no matter which way up it is, it looks identical to you. All the faces are the same size, all the points are as far away from each other, all the sides are the same length. If I put a sphere around it, all of the points would touch the inside of the sphere, but the edges wouldn't. If I was to put a sphere inside it, it would kiss the centres of the faces, but wouldn't touch any of the points. That is the true nature of opposition. It's a balance, it's a compromise, it's a matter of self-definition. This is your tetrahedron. It automatically introduces us to the 4th number, number 4. We've gone from the dot to the 1st dimension, to the 2nd dimension in the plane, to the 3rd dimension in a form. And it's got 4 faces to it. That's the first of the shapes that spirit can make with triangles. The second of the shapes spirit can make with triangles is called the octahedron. The octahedron is exactly the same. As I move it around, you can see that this one, no matter which way you look at it, it looks identical. It's a way of dividing a sphere into 8 equal portions. They're all triangles, and you can see that we've got a pyramid on the top of this. Now there's a whole load of geometry that's just tied in with that one single shape. And we can't go anywhere near it today, unfortunately, but all of these we're looking at are rich with symbolism and complexity. So that's your octahedron. The third shape spirit can make out of triangles is this one. It's the icosahedron. It's made up of 20 triangles. Once again, as I move it around in front of you, you can see that it looks the same from wherever you look at it. So if you imagine that these were inflatable and you could just blow it, you can see how it would become a sphere, can't you? Made up of these triangles. And this, of course, is one of the basic geometries involved in icosahedral dome tents. Now, I like to think that as spirit went through these shapes, it thought, there's an interesting shape. As it pulled up the octahedron, it saw the square around the centre. Can everybody see there's a square around these triangles there? And I guess that it thought, I wonder what happens if I fill space with one of those. And so we end up with our most familiar of the solids, which is a cube, or a hexahedron to give it its technical name. Spirit might well have thought, as it was building the icosahedron, it might have thought, there's a 5-sided shape. Now the 5-sided shape is truly exotic. Even the plane, the pentagon, we can turn it out really easily in computers nowadays. It's very difficult to do otherwise. And Plato and his followers, who studied these shapes and after Euclid and Pythagoras, they were so careful about it that nobody wrote anything down about the pentagon until Leonardo da Vinci. It was a secret. Nobody was allowed to know how to make a pentagon. It's a difficult thing to do. There's a couple of ways of doing it, not using the vesica. So the next shape that spirit would have come up with was this beautiful sign, this beautiful one here. And this is a 12-sided shape, and its sides are made of pentagons, 5-sided shapes. So everybody will be familiar with the fact that we can have a pentacle in the centre of one of those, 5-pointed star, Goblin's cross, as I've heard it called. So what we've got there are the only 5 ways of dividing a sphere into equal portions. Plato knew that, and he wrote that down because Pythagoras had told him. But many years later, we actually got the arithmetic proofs that prove that these are the only way. This one divides it into 6 squares, this one into 8 triangles, 4 triangles, 20 triangles and 12 pentagons. That's the only way you can divide spheres into equal portions. The ancients knew that. As I said, our oldest ones on Earth probably come from Skara Brae and are several thousand years before Christ. So this is ancient knowledge. Plato also, rather usefully, assigned to each of these shapes an element. You remember that Andy was talking yesterday about the elements in each of the directions. Well, Plato assigned earth to the cube, air to the octahedron, which is now also associated with prana because they're both forms of energetic energy. This one was associated with fire, this one, the icosahedron, with water, and this with the mystical fifth element, quintessence, or ether. And funnily enough, ether was discarded more or less as an idea, again, during the Enlightenment, and only now is it coming back. We've realised that we can't get a vacuum on Earth that's anywhere near as empty as vacuums in space, and that even in the most empty thing we can make in the deepest, darkest cave protected by the best tackle we've got, there's still forces operating inside that vacuum. And the thoughts are that those energies are coming straight out of the ether. They're calling it new ether, NU ether. How about that? So Plato talked a lot about that, and here it is, your dodecahedron.